Just going to share, just to welcome everybody. We're having a special session today, which is great. Thanks everyone for agreeing to come on and do our, okay, I'm still admitting. Shauna, can you? Yeah, thank you. And to give updates and stuff. So this is going to be a fun day. Our CNO group is going to come in a few minutes. It's okay. They'll come a little bit later. And today, working groups are going to provide updates. We have 4 working groups who are participating today. And then we'll have time for Q&A, of course, that's what we do. And then if people have questions about anything centrally, they can do that as well. So let's get started. I didn't put an order here, but CNO is not first. She's going to be a little bit late, so last. So I don't know, do we want to start with Sjogren's before I don't want to volunteer people, but is Sjogren's okay to go?
Yeah, can I share my screen?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thanks, Sarah and Dina.
Oh, is Dina here?
She sure is.
I'm here. I'm in the cafeteria, so.
Yeah, Dina, do you want me to do this?
If you don't mind.
Yeah, that's fine. All right. We get this up and okay. Everybody can see my screen okay?
Perfect.
These slides are compliment of Dana, so she did the hard work, but she informed me she'd be in an awkward place, so there she is. So Sjogren's, thank you, Dana. So Sjogren's disease working group, I think, continues to progress at a very rapid rate. So Dana has been working hard to complete 2 out of 3 of our focus groups. So she's completed the United States focus group, which was complicated by a hurricane, I believe. And she completed the combined Australia and China focus group. And we have the European focus group, which has made it through all of the regulatory bodies and is pending just about a month from now, which is really exciting. We did, because of the hurricane and time zone issues, we had some problems with getting the full 10 participants in our United States group. And so we might do one more sort of catch-all focus group so that we can make sure that we achieve an appropriate number of participants. So we'll sort of see. And we have, thanks to our pharmaceutical industry sponsors, we do, I think, have some funds where that's feasible, which is really nice because otherwise our options were very limited. So Dana put together this lovely list of our initial participants, and so what we see here is we have our United States distribution. So you can see Sjogren disease, unlike some of our other diseases, you may or may not know, has a typical age of onset 55 to 65. So we have an older cohort, which makes sense. We have a disease duration that Dana really strategically put together. Early disease onset, which would be within those 5 years, and later disease onset. You can see a nice distribution. And you see a great race and ethnicity distribution. Okay, and then, oh, you also have the flare rate in there. Yeah, so Dana did a great job here because we also have our Sjogren's patients with pretty mild disease who don't tend to flare, and our patients who do have some intermittent Sjogren disease flares. So from this initial focus group, here are some key quotes that Dana pulled out. It's hard to attribute certain symptom to Sjogren's versus anything else. So I guess if you have Sjogren's, it's easy to blame everything on it. It's probably akin to lupus, right? So hard to delineate what's causing Sjogren's or what's just getting older. Another patient said they had a bad response to hydroxychloroquine and end up in the emergency room, not being able to breathe, not on any medications because nothing seems to work. She was on pilocarpine or something like that, and it just made her sweat, or him. Day to day, a lot of fatigue, don't do work anymore. They do yoga and Pilates every day, and that's how they manage. And the last patient said, right now, actually, I'm doing physical therapy for the 8th time. We want to keep the muscles going, but it's not fun. It's not a fun disease. People think it just affects your eyes and dryness. I can't chew because I can't feel. So everything that I eat has to be soft or else I choke. It takes a toll on me. It's taken a toll on my husband and daughter. I just get up every day and thank God that I'm alive and that you keep pushing, hoping one day maybe there'll be something they can find a cure. Then we uniquely, I think, put together the China and Australia focus group cohort. So we can see here 3, 4, 5, 11 participants. And we had largely female, which is distribution of disease. And again, you can see here Dana put together a wide variety of disease duration. She has a PGA in there as well, which also shows a pretty good range and distribution. You see that here we have about a 50-50 split between the two groups. And we also have our Sjogren's flares listed. So here are two takeaway quotes. I'd say the biggest impact is family life and the ability to put to input as a dad and contribute as a dad. Sjogren's has an impact on that, and just the need to stick to the medical regime. If I don't take any medications through the day, I really feel the impacts. So those two major things. It's also family life. If it's sticking to the medication, it's also the ability to work. It's a difficult situation to be able to work and put in, but I'm working. It's difficult. People don't understand the disease. I think there was a lot of perception in regard to I was losing it or I wasn't. I was really struggling with brain fog, and I knew like I said, it just, and the tiredness just chronically didn't help. So I've worked hard all my life. I should be reaping my rewards, but sadly my work life's deteriorated. I'm on medical leave now, hoping things will improve. I think most of all, and family, like the other gentleman was saying, I've got 7 grandkids, so I really wouldn't trust myself to be with them physically all day because I get tired, too tired. That there is, because everything about me and family culturally as well, but yes, I think the biggest thing is work life and brain fog, which is shocking. So then the other piece that we have been chipping away at is this qualitative systematic review, and we are hopefully getting near the finish line for this one. So we identified multiple qualitative studies in the literature that meet our criteria thresholds. And hopefully this paper will come out, or at least we'll have a draft submitted within the next 3 months. So that's going along. So where we are now, we're going to do a third focus group. We need to just finish the tables, and then our group will make an appearance. Eular, not myself, but Dana is for sure going. And that's it.
That's awesome. Thank you. I think we should do questions like as we go, if that's so that people can, rather than go through all the groups. Is that okay? So awesome. Wow, great work. Thanks, everyone. So questions for them. Yeah, I knew Dorcas would. Thank you.
That's
Go ahead.
very exciting, all the work you're doing. Wow, good, excellent work. And can I have a sense of when you get to OMERACT, what are you hoping that OMERACT is going to be able to contribute to your work, the OMERACT meeting?
Well, I think our real hope is by then, finally, we'll have all of our qualitative domains. And then we really need to, as a group, bin and winnow and get them into the Delphi. So I think we want to have our final binned and winnowed list. And that, I think, as a consensus exercise is a good idea because we have so many domains to start off with. And we put together tentative plans to bin and winnow to help keep things neater, but I think it'll probably be a very robust discussion if our quarterly meetings are any indication of how people feel about certain domains. But I think that the discussion itself will help really with the process of getting things down to a core list for Delphi.
And there are some different like nominal group techniques or different group techniques you can think about.
Well, like the star thing, like where we put them all up and then people can put.
That's one. Yeah.
If you have other ones too, let us know because we can start thinking about it and bring some, simple materials like stickers.
Yes, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Good. Thank you. Excellent work.
Thank you, Dorcas.
Yeah, I think the SIG will be very interesting, like you said, based on we have monthly meetings that always come up with very interesting comments and suggestions. So I think the
Yeah.
SIG is going to be great. Yeah. But I agree with Dorcas, like make it interactive and make them part of that whole process as well. So.
I think too, for this SIG, it'll be important to say that this is our final list. And so to be really clear that the goal is going to be binning and winnowing and not a session where you're accepting more domains, which sometimes can happen. So just having a really clear plan.
That's a good point. Yeah, we'll have to set expectations.
Yeah,
Well,
like we are not accepting
yeah.
another 20 domains to be added.
I can't imagine how we can come up with more. I
know.
don't know. I feel like but
I really think it's at saturation. I cannot
Yeah.
imagine that we're going to add anything else to this. I really can't, but you never know.
You'd be surprised.
Awesome.
Who's up next, Bev? Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks all. Thanks, Dana.
Susanna, would you, or Dorte, you can choose.
Oh, I'm happy to.
Okay, great. Thanks, Susanna.
Okay, so can you see these slides?
Perfect.
I was actually just going to speak off the cuff, but I've very quickly pulled together some slides that I have that just seem to help people focus. So obviously we're the Remission in Rheumatoid Arthritis Patient Perspective Working Group, and in recent times we've been focusing on independence in the context of RA remission. This is some of the key people from our working group, particularly the co-chairs are fellows and patient research partners, and we've been lucky in recent times to have some additional fresh blood join the group. So as I've said, independence has become a focus of the group. As in the earliest focus group some years ago now, the term independence was used by patients, in fact was ranked in the top 3 most important domains when considering RA remission. And it was found that the nominal rating scales that were used in a prospective validation study of patients in remission for independence was not particularly valid, unlike pain and fatigue, which are the other 2 symptoms patients included in the top 3 when considering RA remission. So it was clear that there was no ideal instrument for independence. And most of the available tools seem to focus heavily on physical function, and the sense we were getting from patients was that independence was a more complex and nuanced concept than simply function. And leaving out quite a few steps here, we've had a fellow perform a scoping review, Thomas Koo, some years ago to explore how independence is represented in the rheumatoid arthritis literature and to assess for any common descriptions or definitions. With the aim being to develop a definition in the first phase of the work. And he identified 58 papers, 25 quantitative, 28 qualitative, which had English as the official language. And he's put together some little infographics which highlight the key features that primarily independence takes many forms and may be present in some situations but not in others, I guess confirming the complex nature of this somewhat difficult to grasp concept. But he did identify 4 main themes, being physically and functionally able, and there are a few quotations here from the literature about this. This, as expected, was the most frequently encountered theme and almost exclusively focused on activities of daily living rather than more complex tasks. The next theme was a return to a state before arthritis with this concept of normality, which is quite a problematic concept, as we've discovered in further qualitative work. Again, other quotes from the literature, and that there are sort of an array of issues with this concept, and that it may apply differently to earlier RA patients versus those with more established disease, and is not particularly specific to independence. sense of freedom without needing to rely on others. Again, further quotes. It wasn't encountered all that often, but it was unique in that it didn't require complete physical or functional ability. So here was some evidence that maybe it's not all about function alone. And then the fourth was having control over the organisations of one's life. A couple of further quotes. And this is a concept that we've spent quite a bit of time thinking about with this theme capturing what we've termed a cognitive form of independence. This is not the same as cognitive function. It's got nothing to do with executive and intellectual function. It's a sense of independence, which is felt, I guess, in a more cerebral or emotional sense for an individual. And it suggests that receiving external help might not exclude being independent. And I guess they're the things which have led to the greatest difficulty that we've encountered in this process. Independence is not consistently described in the literature, and there's no definition. It takes many forms in different contexts and is much more than being physically or functionally able. So this was put together from the qualitative work, and I haven't gone into all the methods of this. This was Caroline Fleury's excellent work, and she came up with 5 themes with some more detail about what they actually meant and are reflected in patient quotes as well. So again, we do have this physically and functionally able theme. We have something a bit more substantial, participation beyond functional. So that's sort of like social participation and potentially having this concept of normality, a degree of personal autonomy, having or taking control. So this is where the choices are not dictated by rheumatoid arthritis. Cognitive independence I've mentioned already, and then we needed to work out how to include assistance in this, and I'll talk about that a bit more. I won't talk about the bottom section at this point. And in fact, when we mirrored or laid Thomas's themes on top of this, you can see that they align reasonably closely with what he found, which was, I guess, reassuring. So the way the patients felt about this in the qualitative work led to this definition, being able to do what you want, when you want, in the way you want to do it, which is probably what wasn't quite, I don't know, complex, detailed, sufficiently scientific in nature or rigorous as a more usual OMRAC definition. So we then spent a fair bit of time defining this. So we have a domain definition report, and I won't go into all the details of that. I've tried to just really highlight some of the issues that we've been talking about for really quite some time now. And the fact that assistance is really quite complex, and it may be more of a qualifier or contextual factor of independence. It can be an aid to independence or could undermine the ability to achieve independence. And what somebody perceives as a need for assistance can be influenced by contextual factors in itself. Might also be influenced by the activity. It can change over time and various other individual factors and what is socially acceptable within a certain cultural environment and so on. So we've put together a conceptual model that looks a little bit like this. It's the starting point does seem to be physically and functionally able, but also having this element of cognitive independence, which allows people to have participation beyond function and ultimately have some sense of control with their choices not dictated by their disease, and that assistance somewhat sits outside this but impacts on all of these different components. So our next steps have been and will be the TAG review, which really interestingly focused on, which is very valuable and focused on this difficulty we face with incorporating assistance, whether it being aids versus a more unwelcome form of person-to-person assistance. We assume that, well, the patients have told us really that welcome person-to-person assistance under certain circumstances is not considered necessarily undermining independence, but obviously there can be unwelcome person-to-person assistance as well as the need for aids, which can also be a welcome aid to independence. It became apparent in reading that we needed greater clarity on what we mean by cognitive independence. It's not the same as cognitive function, as I mentioned. They also mentioned that we need some additional psychometric experience on the working group, with which I think we all heartily agree. So we think there are relevant groups with similar interest who may have expertise, like the composite working group, because we think ultimately we need to develop a composite instrument, and other working groups that have a similar interest in this concept of independence, its definition, and the development of a new instrument. So the next step after doing this is to develop a new composite instrument. So to that end, we've taken some of the information that Thomas Koo got from his scoping review. We're doing a different scoping review, looking at how these various components have been measured in rheumatoid arthritis or other musculoskeletal conditions, and validated. And I guess our intention is to identify any validated instruments in musculoskeletal conditions that may measure some or all of the components of independence, and then work out where the gaps are. And it seems to be on track. We hope to complete the extraction by mid-March and generate a list of measures of independence. We're going to be looking at other sources as well, to try and develop a comprehensive list of potential measures for the various themes and components of independence. So our draft agenda for the SIG is to present our final domain definition, focusing on the meaning of cognitive independence as well, and to include a significant time discussing assistance, particularly with the PRPs. We have PRPs on our working group, obviously, but a wider group would be very valuable. We do have a large spreadsheet with lots of components, which I've just kept in my list here. And then to discuss the potential instruments that we'll have listed from our work that we're doing at the moment. And we thought we might have a little sort of activity within the group for all the people who are there on site. We might post eligible instruments around the room and give people post-it notes and have them go around and see whether they think they're useful, and potentially contribute to the development of our composite index instrument. And because of the complexity of these concepts and so on, we thought we might develop a video to deliver an elevator pitch to try and explain some of these issues. And we also have some working group members who can't attend in person, so just on a practical level, we're going to try and do a little personal Zoom using one of our laptops so that they can join us, given that some of the work is being done by these members of the working group, and they're really keen to see how it's received, but unable to make the meeting. So thank you. I will now stop sharing. And take questions.
That's an amazing, awesome work. Thank you so much for the update and for all the work you've been doing, continue to do. I'm sure there are questions. Caroline is here.
And we've got Karis, who's actually been driving, just spotted her there, she's arrived, who's been driving our work on currently on the scoping review, which is going extremely well.
Yeah, lots of work.
Caroline, do you want to make any comments? Oh, maybe have a question.
Roberto.
Yes, sorry, I have a new computer and I get a little bit lost with all the buttons. Yeah, so we also have independence of one of our codomain. Yes, in Polos. Yes, and we are now sending it out for the online module so that everybody can vote and ratify the union we propose. And we decided to leave it, the definition of independence, to leave it open. I mean, we explained where it comes from, and actually it's actually the same reasoning behind, but we left it open, so it will be defined. Can we use it, or we will have to wait for you to present it in OMERAC 2025, because we are still preparing the module. Can we use this? We want to do the way we want to do.
From the point of view of independence, whether you include it in your onion or, well, I guess at the moment we have a draft definition, which we will present at the SIG, and hopefully that's well received. I think it's very similar to your draft definition as well that I saw in some of the earlier work for Polos. So I think we're pretty much coming onto the same page. The development of a composite instrument is probably going to take quite a while. So having a feasible validated instrument is a long way off. So in that sense, it's in the kind of research agenda, if that's still a thing. But no, we're more than happy for you to talk about independence and the work that we're doing, and that we hope to, I think I mentioned Polos actually in my slides. We hope to work closely with some of the other groups, including yours, on that. So yes, it's still a work in progress. I mean, we know that the nominal rating scale didn't really work very well because we have done that work quite some time ago. So in terms of putting it into practice, we haven't really got any other alternatives at this stage.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good example of groups who can work together, because you guys, I mean, Susanna, you've joined the Polos group, and Catherine sometimes comes to the remission group. So I think that's an excellent example of two groups who can work together on them.
Yes, I'm really hoping that the Polos members of the Polos group, foot and ankle, have got some similar concepts that they've been working on, vigilance and so on, which is a little bit like cognitive independence. So I'm really hoping that we don't overlap. I haven't been back and looked at the program recently to check that meetings aren't at the same time, but hopefully we can all go to each other's meetings and meet in person, which will be fun.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. Dorcas?
I had two points. So I like that idea, Susanna, and congratulations. That was an excellent presentation. And I know it's really hard to get into your definition of independence, but I think starting with that is always going to be such an important part of what you do. So good, excellent work. Loretto, I was wondering, is your ask about using the definition, like whether, like the working definition that you've got, Susanna, if they, like, should we see if Polos wants to borrow that so that they could then vote on, which of these definitions is kind of resonating with you? Because if you haven't hooked into one yet, Loretto can.
Well, actually, we we already set up all the definitions, and then when we learned that remission was preparing this one, we left it open. So in this module where we explain where this domain came from, we explain what we had came up to, and then at the end we say, but the definition is open for discussion because it's still OMERACT is preparing another one. So that's what we have in our module.
And that's always challenging when you have a label and no definition, and that's what I've run into before, is people don't really know what they're voting for, especially as independence. They might go back to that physical ability.
The good thing is that the definition, the explanation that we have on what we understand about independence includes all the things that they came up to. Although we do not have a specific statement for the definition. That's the problem. Yeah.
I can send you the latest version of the domain definition report, Loretto, if that's helpful. I think I might have sent it when we first talked about this, but I can send the latest version.
Okay.
To you.
And can we change now that part on the module? Yes. Can I still send it? Bev?
Well,
I guess Shauna, they're talking about changing a definition on their Delphi.
Yeah.
Of what they did their survey, and it's not, I mean, the other way would just be to move it to the research area, but it is their core.
And then I see Carolyn's hand up, so I don't want, but let's bookmark that maybe getting these groups together is something we could do at lunchtime one day at OMRACT, is to get these groups that are talking about independence and really have a face-to-face. If people are going to be there, that might be a neat opportunity.
Yeah. And I think that's
Polos is hoping to have a vote on their core domain set in March. So
In March.
Bev,
Okay,
I'll
thanks.
leave that with you to figure out.
Loretto, you don't want to be jumping around with your definition. If you're wanting to have a vote, you want to.
I mean, we want to have a vote on the domains, yes.
Right, but the
So-
domains are like, that's one thing we're really encouraging groups, is that their domains are linked to the definition of that domain. So there's no questioning what you're trying to capture.
Essentially, once you go ahead with your vote, you're saying these are our core domains. These are our list of, I don't remember how many there are, sorry. These are our list of, let's say, 6, and these are the definitions that go with those 6. So those get endorsed together like as a package. So there wouldn't be, I mean, certainly things can change and you can have an endorsement again, but really once you move forward and get an endorsement, that's that. So let's.
It would be, yeah, it would be like endorsing the definition of independence by the remission group.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, I haven't had a good look at what your definition is like, and if from your qualitative work and the work that you've done so far, the ideas are the same. I mean,
yeah.
We have in OMRACT multiple domains with different definitions depending on the group. So just because there's one word, it doesn't have to mean the definitions are exactly the same. So as long as the context of remission under your working group is the same as the definition that the remission group has put together, then I think they should match if it fits. But if it doesn't fit, you maybe need a different definition. That's okay too. So.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, Carolyn.
No, not at all. So I just say I really like that idea of having a meetup to focus on independence across groups. I think that's a brilliant idea. I just wanted to kind of a reminder or a highlight that we were looking at remission and the independence in the context of remission, and there might be subtle differences in general independence versus specifically remission independence. So those points that Shauna was making, I think, is important to look at. If there are any differences in your quali work, it might be worth picking that out. There was a theme that came up around being stubbornly independent. So I'm not in remission, and I'm not, but I'm going to be independent regardless. So I'm going to push through the pain, and I'm going to. So in the sort of more broader disease experience, there might be that concept of independence as well, rather than we're looking at the very extreme, what does independence mean when you can do all the things and you're not having to force yourself through. So it's just to remember that bit. I know there's been a few discussions of, isn't remission the only area that we would look at independence in, because don't you need to be in remission to be independent? But patients also tell us that they will sort of, force themselves through pain, for example, to do the things they want to. So it's probably worth a discussion and maybe a bit of a comparison of the quali data across. But yeah, I just wanted to flag that. I think similar to Shauna's point, ours might not be the only definition, because we're looking quite specifically in the context of remission.
And Caroline,
it'd be very nice in that definition then to say, and in comparison to the remission definition, which is in remission, ours is in a different. Yeah.
and you're part of both groups, right, Caroline? You're part of
No,
Polos.
I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not part of the Polos, but yeah, happy to have a lunchtime discussion about it. I think that'd be really, really helpful across both groups, actually.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Wow. That's a great discussion. Thank you. I think we should move on. Dorothy, where did you go? You okay to go next? And then I see Melissa has joined, so
yeah.
Thank you.
Let me share here. Hopefully you can see my screen now.
Yes, perfect. Thank you.
Good. First of all, let me just shortly take you back to Colorado Springs to remind you what we were doing there so that everybody knows what we're doing and why we're doing the current work we are working on. We had a SIG in Colorado Springs, and we also presented our results of our qualitative studies. We did some focus groups and some individual interviews. And for the focus groups, we presented the result that shows that patients said that the impact on life was very important to them when assessing side effects. They also said the physical and mental component was important, and they considered the economic and time and energy consuming aspects important as well. They also said that frequency, duration, and severity were important measurement issues. And then there were some other issues that they consider important as well, but we will not address them in safety. And overall, they also said that the balance between benefit and harms and the cumulative burden of having more than one side effect at the same time, or the persistence of side effects over time, was important to them. We also discussed our results from previous studies in individual interviews. We had identified a long list of specific side effects, and we discussed overall 12 categories of side effects with patients, which corresponded to 28 subcategories and 171 symptoms. After that, we discussed the results, and the main points were that we were discussing whether we could have an overall measure of patients' evaluation of side effects, whether we could do a process of binning and winnowing, and whether the burden of a questionnaire would be too big for patients. We also did a poll asking whether we had collected enough qualitative data to move forward, and 96% said they agreed with us. 40% said they didn't know, and luckily nobody disagreed. So after that, we published our results from the SIG with a definition of patient perception of safety, that is an outcome that represents the patient voice evaluating the symptomatic treatment-related adverse events for people with rheumatic and musculoskeletal conditions enrolled in clinical trials. And this would include severity, frequency, and interference of symptoms from different body systems. So, as we now knew what to measure, our next step was to find out how to measure this. And therefore, we have been working on instrument selection ever since. We are currently working in two directions. We have our focus on a single item measure, and that includes two projects. One of them is to evaluate a single item instrument using a match and feasibility survey. The other one is a project that builds on results that we have from a previous conducted survey. So first, and then also, sorry, we also are focusing on a multi-item measure. But first, let us have a look at the single item measures, and let me remind you of the results that we have from our focus groups interviews, where a patient said that the impact on life and the cumulative burden was very important to them, because we are thinking whether a single item measure of patient-reported bother or trouble to side effects might be able to cover this. And this is what we are investigating in the study. And following the UMEREC procedure, we have first looked into the literature to search for appropriate instruments of bother or trouble to side effects, and we have identified 6 instruments. Therefore, we have moved forward to the next stage, which is conducting a match and feasibility survey, and our survey also includes a rating of the 6 instruments that we have identified. So hopefully the results will help us to conclude whether it's a match with the domain and whether any of the instruments are feasible. And this will also be the focus for our SIG at the Barcelona meeting. But let me give you an update of the survey of match and feasibility that we are doing. We have potentially 83 participants. There are 68 members from the safety working group and 15 PIPs planning to come into Barcelona that we have shared our survey with. It was sent out on January the 24th. We have sent out a reminder. We have also reminded all the safety members of our survey, and a final reminder was sent out last week. And so far, we have 49 completers to our survey, and the survey will close on Friday. So we are closely to having a look at the results. The other project that we are doing about a single item measure builds on a survey that was done by Glenn Hazelwood a couple of years ago. In his survey, he asked patients with the RA to indicate the presence or absence of the symptomatic side effects that are included in the PRO CTCAE. And he also asked patients an overall question of how much they were bothered by side effects from their RA medication. So in this project, we are building on Glenn's data, and we are doing principal component analysis. And we are assessing any association there must be between any of the individual side effects in the PRO CTCAE and the overall measure of bother. And the multi-item measure that we are currently working on, it's at protocol stage, and we have described that we will build on the results that we have from our individual interviews. And our next step will be to do a process of binning and winnowing to reduce the 117 symptoms that we have in our list. After that, we will look into response options and recall time frames. And we have already some guidance from our focus groups, as patients said that frequency, duration, and severity was important. Next, we will ensure the content validity to allow inputs from patients. And after that, we will develop and pilot test our instrument using a computer interference. Next, we will do a feasibility assessment, and hopefully we can include our instrument in an already planned randomized controlled trials. And lastly, we will consider whether a composite measure will be feasible to develop. And the protocol has been submitted for a TAC review just over a month ago, and we're still waiting to have some feedback on that. So I hope this has given you an idea of the two main issues that we're working on right now, but the focus for our SIG at the Barcelona meeting will be the single item measure. We have not yet started to specific planning of our SIG, as we're still waiting for the results of our matching feasibility survey.
Awesome. Thank you, Dorte. Excellent overview of everything. Any questions? Yeah, thank you. I'm sure there are questions. No? Don't forget that if you haven't filled out the survey, that it closes on Friday, to please fill that in.
Just looking at the time, is there another group,
Yeah.
Beth?
Okay. I know. I was watching because Melissa's going to present. So no questions, Melissa? Over to you. Thanks again, Dorothy.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. I'll share my screen as well, too. I have a few slides that I'll give an update for the, excuse me, the CRMO group, chronic recurrent multifocal osteomyelitis. As I'm talking, I will pause a little bit because I do have some questions, I think, for the group. And I mean, I could do it at the end, or we could kind of do it just in the middle as well, too. So just real quick background, we're generating our domains in our working group. We have done our scoping review and our qualitative studies. We held virtual focus groups and an online discussion board. We did that all a couple of years ago. This is a busy slide. I just threw this in. We presented our results from the qualitative studies and the scoping review at ACR last year. After collecting all the information from those two big sources, we have ended up with 34 final domains that we put into our Delphi. We started out with over 300, and we have narrowed that down through the process of binning and winnowing over the last couple of years through small working groups, a big session at the OMRAC meeting in 2022-3, and then little surveys through our working group as well too. So our group is currently in the Delphi survey part of our domain generating phase. We sent out our initial survey almost 3 months ago on December 9th. Initially sent it out to 229 participants that we had gathered through the OMRAC CRMO working group. We have a very robust social media Facebook support group, and invited volunteers from there. I had developed a QR code for people to input their information so that I can add them to the Delphi survey participant list. I've sent out weekly reminders, and actually we're doing it through RedCap, which I forgot to mention. And so it automatically will send weekly reminders to those who didn't complete their survey. So weekly reminders have been sent out since the 9th. We did not have great numbers. We met at just like a regular work group meeting last month, and we had about 116 people who started the survey. We had about 102 people who completed the whole survey. So we decided to keep it open, do another push to get some more participants. And so we advertised again through some social media sites, put some more email reminders out. Dr. Dan Zhao, who's one of the co-leaders of the group, is actually hosting a CRMO family conference this upcoming weekend. So he's going to advertise it again through there. So we'll see if we get more after this weekend as well. But over the last month, we were able to, we added 31 more participants to the invite list. Whether or not they completed it, I will show you those. So we boosted maybe 12, 15 people. So we have 136 participants that started the survey, and they filled out the initial part with like the demographic information. And then those who completed the whole survey through to the end is 120. So about a 46 so far response rate. This is the breakdown of just who has participated so far. Adult patients, only a few pediatric patients, patient caregivers and clinicians, and then some researchers. It's almost a pretty evenish kind of split amongst participants. So
you sound frustrated, but I think those numbers are pretty good, actually.
So I would like more, but
that's how I feel every time I send out a survey.
Yes, exactly. I did send also specific emails to the 16 people that started it and didn't complete it. I only got one person to respond back saying, I'm going to do it. So I'll give it a little bit more time.
What's your target? Like, what were you, because CNO is unique, right?
Yeah.
So maybe some of the numbers we get with some of the other groups aren't going to be the same.
Yeah, I love
group. So maybe we look at something like CPPD. It is maybe a closer number comparison for your group. But what were you hoping for when you?
Well, I think this is a lofty goal, but I was looking at like the JIA group, and they got a really good participation rate, like 70, 80%. And I was like, maybe if we could reach that, that would be great. But I don't know if we're going to get there. And, we're kind of like, at what point do we just like stop asking people to fill it out?
because what we see sometimes too is when you wait too long between 1 and 2,
Yeah.
you get too big of a drop. So it's, this tricky balance of, do you go ahead because you've got these people engaged already to round 2, or do you try and get as many as you can? It's tricky. I'm not sure there's a perfect answer, but
I have a kind of like a tentative plan. It's not really based on participant numbers at this point anymore. It's just kind of, I'll show you. It's mostly just because I have to stop at some point.
And this looks a lot better. This looks a lot better than our working group.
Well, yeah, we had, actually with 120, we did get 18 more over the last month. So we were at 102 who completed all the domains. So this is just another breakdown of like the collaborator groups of who is participating. This is like a big category, and then this was just more kind of specific who's participating and where they kind of classify themselves. So about 50% are parent, patients, and caregivers. So a little over 50%. This is the age range that we are also getting, pretty widespread age range, which is good. And then we do have a lot of countries that were able to respond, some of them with just 1, so they're representing their whole country. And it covers 5 continents as well, too. The majority are from United States and United Kingdom, though. And then Canada came in third. So, and then this is just a spread of like how long patients have had their disease, because we'd like to have, people with early onset as well as people who have had, their disease for many years, to kind of also get those 2 perspectives as well. So my next steps are, there's going to be the CRML Family Conference this weekend. I'll at least see if we get more participants from that. And then March 9th, I have a tentative plan to just officially stop and close round 1. And the whole reason for that is because I will be on vacation from March 1st to March 8th. So then I will let people, I won't plan to do anything during that week, and I'll just see if we can get more participants, but then I will officially close it on March 9th. And then I have to allow myself some time because the way that REDCap works is it just gives you the output for everybody. I'll have to separate it out by the kind of collaborator groups, the patient caregiver groups, and then the provider other care groups, so that I can be able to see where, which domains will move forward. Preliminary results, when I looked at this last time before I did the updated numbers with the 18 more people, there's an okay number that look like it'll be easy to figure out that either they're definitely no or definitely yes, but there's a lot of like widespread middle people who are picking a lot of like 4, 5, and 6s. So people aren't. And I don't know, I was probably part of the problem as well, too, I think. People aren't being more definitive and like, yes, important, no, important. So, but I know that, this is the process of the Delphi surveys, and the final round will just forcefully, have people choose, do you want to keep this or not keep this? So, and then I'll just have to, once I figure out what's going to move on to round 2, I'll beta test that out to work group members. And then we have our SIG session coming up in May. And at this point, our plan is just to kind of present what we have. I'm hoping to at least be done completely with 2 rounds. We'll see how fast we can move with round 2, 3, and eventually 4. But I know it took a little long just to get the numbers for this first round. Hopefully 2 and 3 will move a little faster, but this is kind of our tentative plan. It's just to kind of present where we're at and maybe have some people, maybe have round 3 ready to start being filled out. So, and that is all I have for an update.
Excellent.
Any questions?
We only have 4 minutes. So any questions? Congrats on getting those numbers. I know how hard you worked. I guess it has put you behind, and hopefully people continue with their round 2. Dorcas?
Yeah, congratulations. I echo Bev's comments. That's great. And good. I agree. The numbers are not terrible. So you're doing okay. Don't worry about that.
Okay.
One thing I think about is to just reflect on presenting rounds 1 and 2 at OMERACT whilst you're still trying to get round 3. Like, just think about it. What is the impact of having a meeting talking about some of the results? Is it going to be positive, or could that change your results or influence yours? And I don't know the answer. Maybe other people have more experience in this. I could see it as a real, come on, gang, we have one more round to go. We've got to narrow it down, take the extremes. And certainly in your introduction to the next rounds, I'd encourage people to realize that you've got to get this massive list down to 5. So let's aim for that. But I don't know about talking about the round 1 and 2 results. So I open that up and I don't know.
I mean, that's a very good point. I didn't think about that could, influence some things. I think in that sense, then maybe I could just give like a quick update on it, and then kind of focus on what our group needs to like accomplish next after we do the Delphi, not to influence any kind of decisions on the Delphi survey then.
But there might be literature saying it's okay to influence those, like it's okay to do this type of presentation. I would just think about it before you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can look at that. That's a very interesting point. Yeah, thank you. Important. I think there's a couple of groups who are in the middle of their Delphi who will also be talking at their SIGs. Lupus, I think, Asahi.
And one thing, I'm not sure if this has happened, but